What's crack-a-lackin', everybody? My name's my guy, Matt Sapaula here, hailing to you from Dallas, Texas, and back in the podcast studio again for another episode of the Seven Figure Squad podcast, episode 7. It's going to be a very good show. It's going to be a very holy show.
Yeah, 77.
That's God's number. Back in studio with me today is my trainer, co-host of the show, Milton Alvarez. And joining me in the studio is a gentleman I met on NFL draft night right here at the Cowboys Club. Had a very interesting conversation. If I would have to say I had a Nigerian brother from another mother, he would be it. But joining me in the studio today is Carl Hart, principal of Millbank Capital, a private equity firm. Carl, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, brother. Good to be here. Thanks
so
for having
on
me.
this podcast, we have a lot of interesting topics.
Okay.
Obviously, we're going to discuss your story and how you're making money.
Yeah.
You're a father, you know, married, divorced, now, single dad. And that was my story.
Yeah.
And now you've immigrated to the United States, to Dallas, of all places.
Yeah.
And I figure a money guy like you would be in New York or maybe even LA or even Chicago. But you picked Dallas. We're going to discover why on this podcast. But we're going to discuss starting a business because you're in the private equity space. And there's a guy in there named Steve Schwartzman. Who doesn't know Steve Schwartzman, right?
Yeah.
He's the CEO of Blackstone. He made a very interesting comment on starting a business and what his personal journey was. And I think many of you get value out of it because lots of times people get frustrated about starting a business. People say this and people say that. We're going to see what the CEO of Blackstone said about when he, who went to Yale, went to Harvard Business School, went to Wharton School, how people create opinions about him when he first started Blackstone. Of course, he also worked at Lehman Brothers. And of course, we'll discuss that. Also, why I've never met a winning quitter. Now, I'm not talking about winning for a month, winning for a year, winning for a few years. I'm talking winning for the long term. Why I've never met a winning quitter. We're going to find out how. There's an interesting clip here of a guy that actually did a study and did 700 interviews. We're going to review that clip. The word around the weekend, all the buzz was around this Kansas City Chiefs kicker who did a graduation speech. He talked about the role of men. He talked about pride, not Pride Month. He talked about pride. He talked about the number one role of a woman. Created a lot of waves. And 1 in 3 Americans today between 18 and 24 years old have no income. We're going to discuss why and how Americans are basically today's American middle class has been officially redefined. So I think some of you are wondering what's wrong with Matt's voice. Well, this past week, I did a training event here in Dallas called Train the Trainer. We have 50,000 agents across the country, 3,000 descended upon Dallas. And we had, our events, brother. You've been to our events, right?
Yeah.
Around the clock. I mean, what's our typical schedule like at PHP in terms of training events?
Sunrise to sundown. Maybe sleep about an hour and a half, 2 hours every night for a whole week. It's exhausting, man. Yeah.
We pack in content for every waking moment. So if you can share that clip. Well, actually, let me show my screen here real quick. Just guys to give some context. If you look at my screen, this is how many people we had in Dallas last week. Over 3,000 people at the Sheraton downtown here in Dallas. And so I opened up with a cadence. So the theme of it, Carl, was boot camp. Okay. So I opened up with a cadence, you know?
Yeah.
And I trained for the first hour or two, and then people kept asking me questions. They said I started losing my voice. By the end of the night, this is what my voice sounded like. Can you play the clip? Bars, Alicia Akbar, Jay. Son's almost as tall as him, taller than him now. But he's half black, half Asian, baby. He's Malaysian. So what are you fired about? What are you fired up about? There it is. It's kind of right there. It was just squeaking like a mouse, man.
You sound like a bootleg Darth Vader.
However, coming to the rescue is Paul Bolu, who gave me some bitter cola.
Some bitter cola.
See what I'm talking about?
Absolutely.
He's man, just said, give me some bitter cola. And he came to my house and he was going to work, bro. He was in there. Matter of fact, if I could just show my screen here real quick, I don't have the clip, but if you can just show my screen, Here's at my house. I got my, if you look at my screen, I've got these guys just going to town. Just going to town.
Yeah, that's bitter cola.
It's bitter cola,
Oh yeah,
right?
that stuff is bitter, man.
Oh, it's nasty.
It's nasty as hell.
It's nasty. So I start chomping on it. It's not real time. The video is not real time. I realize it's not real time, but I started eating this, man. It's nasty, bro. Nasty.
So what is it?
It's
Bitter cola. I think it's like a kind of fruit. Usually you have it. It's eaten by a lot of the guys in northern Nigeria, so the Hausas. They have it a lot, and it's just bitter. But you can have it with other things as well. But I've tried it one time and thought, nah, that's not for me.
So within 12 hours, because this is at, what wasn't a shot, it's at 22:58. It's 11 o'clock at night. I chewed about 4 of them.
Yeah.
Nasty, all nasty. Ginger, turmeric, holding to get the inflammation, my voice down. Started coming back. But he says, brother, here's the thing is, thank goodness you're married. Because the side effect, the soldiers be standing tall and strong and proud. And so later on that night, we went to urgent care. I'm just kidding.
No.
Kashina. I'm just kidding, Sheena. I'm just kidding. But Carl, talk to us about your background, because Nigerian, went to school in the UK, and now in Dallas. Briefly talked about your story.
How far back do you want to go? So I've just recently moved to the US from London, the UK. Just been over about a year now. And I grew up in Nigeria first. Early years of my life was in Nigeria. I was born in London. Grew up in Nigeria, went to school, went to boarding school from a very young age. From age about 7, 8. So first years of my life were really defined by being in such an environment where the regiment from when you wake up to when you go down to sleep, there's a schedule and a regime that you have to follow, which I still do till today. I mean, as it says in the Bible, teach a child in the way that it should grow, and when they're older, they'll never depart from it.
There you go.
And I can 100% attest to that. Just the regiment that was instilled in me from such a young age, being away from my parents, being away from home, that really shaped me.
How many siblings did you have?
I had 3. So my older brother and my sister, they were at home, but my parents for some reason decided to ship me to boarding school.
Were you your discipline issue?
No, it wasn't really that.
Okay.
It wasn't a matter of discipline. I just thought, I don't know why they thought that was the best decision, but they sent me there anyway. So moved over to London, probably in my teens, early teens, 13, 14, and been there ever since. I wasn't really the most academic type. I struggled to fit into school like most people do. Just sitting down and cramming information that you're being chucked at and
Actually,
being spoken
most
to.
entrepreneurs don't fit into the academic
Absolutely.
system.
So I thought there was something wrong with me.
Yeah.
Always got into trouble all the time. And the teachers would tell you you're not going to amount to much, all that kind of jazz, which for me anyway, I kind of fortified my mind from a very young age. So those kind of comments didn't affect me much. I just kind of took it on the chin and just kept it moving. But very earlier on, I knew education, formal education, wasn't for me. So I never went down that path.
Even though you're well spoken.
Yes.
And how do you drink your tea? With your pinky up?
Absolutely. Come on. Why do people in America think all we do in England is just drink tea?
Because you taxed us in the beginning. You taxed us in the beginning. That's why.
No, we do a lot more than just drinking tea, But tea, as you very well know, is quintessential English.
So by the way, say the word finance.
Finance.
Okay, cool. Because the snooty people say finance.
No, it's not finance.
It's finance.
It's finance.
Thank you. Okay, cool. So how did you get involved in finance?
Very long story.
We have a short podcast, but
I'll give you the concise version.
Yeah.
So I wasn't always on this side of business,
Okay.
to say the least. Started off on the left, I would say.
Okay.
I'll just give you a quick overview of how that transition happened. Finished school, decided I wasn't going to go to university. I didn't want the debt. That's the only thing you guarantee these
So
days.
you finished school?
I finished school. So
Okay.
high school, you guys call it.
Okay,
Secondary school,
okay.
back in the UK. Decided I didn't want to go into school, to university. And
So people in UK call college university?
yes, correct.
Learn something new?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Formal education wasn't for me. I wasn't an MC, so I couldn't pick up the rhyme and
Okay.
spit bars. Sports was my main thing. So I was heavily into basketball. That I slept, dreamt, shacked, everything basketball.
Okay.
So at that age, my goal was to get in front of the scouts, get a scholarship to the US, come here, play for a college team, and then ultimately make it to the league.
Wow. You're trying to go college D1.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely. But that dream came crashing down swiftly. I blew my knee out. And the injury just kept recurring. And so that dream was away. So my options at the time, I thought, were very limited. So no formal education,
Yep.
no MCing, entertainment world, no sports. Begs the question, what the hell are you going to do with your life, essentially?
You're a good-looking guy. You're athletic. You got to apply that.
Yeah, I get told that sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, and no, the next thing I thought was, okay, let's hit the streets. Let's venture into street entrepreneurship and see where that leads me.
Gotcha.
So at the time, I didn't quite understand my formula for making my decisions in terms of what endeavors I was going to venture into. But now, you know, in retrospect, when I look at it, it was quite systematic. In terms of my thinking, which is strange. I think it's definitely a gift bestowed upon me in terms of just the way I see the world and formulate things in my mind. So I looked at selling drugs as the first sort of avenue, a vehicle to take me to success, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And quickly decided, okay, I'm not going to do that. Reason being, I kind of weighed up the pros and cons. So, okay, how much money can I really make selling drugs at low level? I was still a teenager at the time. So I wasn't going to be pushing crazy weights or being the plug or the distro. None of that stuff at that age.
You just want to be a corner boy.
Yeah. So I understood, you know, you got to pay your dues, you know, and work your way up the ranks. I realized, okay, if I do get caught, what's the risk versus the reward? I'm looking at 8 years, 10 years. How much am I really going to be making? It's not going to be north of 50K. Depending on how hard I work, et cetera, and how long it's going to take me to rise up to the ranks. So I thought, okay, I'm going to park that. That's not for me. And equally, it doesn't require much critical thinking and creativity to be successful in that space. So you got to do is just fill a demand that's already there. Yeah. You didn't create the demand. Just stand and swap products for cash. So it didn't require much ingenuity. So I looked at white collar crime. I thought, okay, if I do get caught, what's the worst case scenario? 2 to 3 years. How much money can I make from this? Infinite. Okay. I kind of like this idea. Let me give it a go. Long story short, got involved heavily, and we grew our business, our enterprise, over the course of 5-6 years to a very substantial amount. I'm not going to go into the details to kind of give people, any inspiration for doing that kind of stuff. But we were extremely successful. Long story short, that all came crashing down.
As it eventually does.
Absolutely. I don't know any, and no one can tell me any successful crime boss that's still in existence still today.
Sure.
Regardless of how long.
It's not generational wealth, that's for sure.
100%.
It's the wrong generational wealth.
Indeed. You know, regardless of how long you run for, it's always going to come to a crashing halt. And that day came for me, day of reckoning. So I got caught, got thrown the book at, ended up going to prison for 3 years. And that's where things really started changing for me. At that point in time, quite frankly, I was what you call a career criminal because I had been to prison 4 times by the time I was 21. So in the eyes of the law, you're a career criminal. That's how they label you. And I remember the particular jail I was in was in the north of England. And to be in that prison, you had to work. So the job I was given was to go out and I was a trash guy, going through the prisons, picking out all the trash, taking it to the recycling plant and using my physical hands to pick and separate the plastics from the bottles and just basically sifting through rubbish in jail. And I remember it as vividly as day. I was like, how the hell is this my life? How the hell have I come from a point where the top Premiership team players, where all my friends, I would take them out to the clubs and we'll ball out, do all that stupidity and all that foolishness. And now I'm in the middle of nowhere. All my brothers, my friends, they have all kind of disappeared. Haven't spoken to many of them till today. And it's been over 15 years now. And just I remember feeling so angry with the world, with myself. My family didn't want to know me. My dad is a vicar, so a pastor in a church.
A vicar?
Yeah,
Okay.
in the Church of England. So
Yes.
a lot of shame,
Yep.
disappointment,
Yep.
all of those feelings, all basking into one. And for me, that was absolute rock bottom. And I remember it so vividly. I mean, I grew up in the church. As I said, my dad was a pastor. And I've always heard people talk about,
Interesting.
the Lord spoke to me. The Holy Spirit spoke to me.
Yeah.
And I always felt like, hang on, what's wrong with me? Because
The Lord ain't spoken to me.
he ain't hollering at me. I've never heard his voice, but I remember the particular moment where everything started shifting. I kind of had this feeling of peace inside me and a voice. Not in the sense that you can hear me as clearly as you can right now, but I'm very conscious of the skeleton of my thinking, the DNA of my thoughts. I know my own voice and how I formulate thoughts. And for a split second, the voice that came into my mind certainly wasn't mine. Didn't know who it was or what it was, but I know for sure it wasn't mine. And the message that I got was so simple and short. It was, Carl, I forgive you for squandering the gifts and the talents I've bestowed on you. And that was it. And what preceded that was kind of what more shocked me. Prior to that point, I had never read a book in my entire life. I was about 20, 21 at the time, never sat down to read an entire book. But the level of clarity that I had once I heard that completely shifted and changed my entire life till today.
Yeah.
Who I needed to become, what I needed to do to become this vision that I saw so vividly in my mind, and the steps that I needed to take in order to become that. And straight after that, I stopped spending time in prison and started investing my time in jail, because I knew I had this time to really zone in and formulate what the rest of my entire life was going to
How
look
much
like.
time did you have left when you finally got this?
At that point, I had about 2 years. So I had 24 months to go.
Wow,
So this was a
okay.
year in of just feeling
So
anger
you
and
locked
bitter.
in for 2 years.
Absolutely. But here's the thing about prison, right? So as business people, we go to networking events, we meet people that we can do JVs and
Sure.
partnerships with, expand your network, et cetera, et cetera. Prison is exactly the same, where you meet the worst of the worst. You meet people that can expand your enterprise.
Yeah, right.
It's exactly the same. So these are the guys
Sure.
that, Osama bin bags and all sorts of people, that you see on the news, read about. And these are the guys that are spotting you in the gym
Yeah.
on chest press. You're going for your food and that's the guy right next to you. Like, wow, you exist, you're real.
Yeah.
And the various propositions that were given when people ask you what you're in for,
Opportunities,
a bag of opportunities.
Yeah.
And they're difficult to say no. My greatest success, I would say, in spite of everything business-wise, is maintaining a positive, healthy mindset for 2 years in such an environment.
Yeah.
Because the environment is negative
big
as
difference, for sure.
hell.
Yeah.
The people, the food, the facilities, everything.
The attitudes, the talk.
The whole shebang.
Nobody's encouraging. Nobody's
Zero.
recognizing.
You have
They'll
none of
tear
that.
you down. Yeah.
None of that. So to really, and I think ultimately speaking, it was the Holy Spirit that guided me through that whole process and that journey over that course of the 2 years. And came out and first started up my first business. I was a broker, so I started brokering real estate. In the UK, it's different. You don't have to have a license. You can just kind of get involved. There's not much red tape as there is here in the US. So I started brokering to what I call investors who are cash rich, time poor. These are your dentists, lawyers. They make a lot of money, but they just don't have a lot of time.
They need to find the deals. They got the money, you need to find the deals.
Absolutely. So I'll go and source the deals. You make the investment. I'll take a fee. Simple. So started selling those like hotcake. And my network expanded and grew, got introduced to family offices, high nets, and various funds, and started brokering what we call trophy assets. So these are your big hotel buildings, large commercial buildings such as this one, and various assets across the UK and Europe. And then my clients' demands started changing. I mean, there's only so much real estate that one can acquire before, okay, what other asset classes can I put money into? And that's kind of how I got thrusted into the PE space. Someone told me, okay, why don't you have all this access to all this money? Why don't you just put buy businesses.
Correct.
I'm like, I didn't even know you can do that.
Source businesses and you find the cash. Still
Absolutely.
Same thing.
You know, because these are already established businesses, operating already. They already have a good track record, making money. So you're not having to start from scratch. You can just place money into it, bring an operator in, or leave the founders in there, grow it, and exit out over a few years. So I quickly became a fixer and sourcing those kind of deals, the businesses that my clients will invest in.
Cool.
We'll grow it. And that's kind of how I got into the game.
I love it. Well, I don't have much time to ask you. If we had another hour, we could, but we got a lot of topics to cover. But I thank you for sharing that, because that shows you how God can turn one around. Like instantly, you hear the voice of God in there.
Yeah.
You didn't say it. I'll say it. You hear the voice of God in there.
Yeah.
He went in there and had a conversation with you. You didn't recognize the voice, but now you recognize the voice.
100%.
And so, and oftentimes people think, well, it's easier to start a business if you had a pedigree, right?
Yeah.
If you went to college, you didn't go to university.
No.
You don't have, today you still don't have a degree.
No formal education.
Okay. It'd be easier if I had a degree. It'd be easier if I had rich parents. It'd be easier if I had a silver spoon in my mouth to get a business started. But let's take a clip here of the CEO of Blackstone, who went to Yale, went to Harvard Business School, went to Wharton, some of the top business schools in America. His last name is Schwartzman. And this is what he said about starting Blackstone. Worked at Lehman Brothers. So he was known. For 15 years, he was known. From his 20s to his mid-30s, he was known. So when he's going to start something new, just like Carl is starting something new, Steve Schwartzman is starting new. And here's what happened. Let's play the clip.
At the beginning, we had a plan. Here's a piece of advice for you if you ever do something. Just don't do what everybody else is doing and think it's wonderful because you're doing it. The world couldn't care less, actually. You care. You think you're wonderful. The world doesn't care. We sent out like 500 letters and to people we knew. They weren't even strangers. And we got no business.
Got no business.
So if you ever want to have the crap scared out of you, send out 500 letters and make pretend they weren't lost at the post office. And you sit around in your little crappy office of 3,000 square feet with no secretary.
I think it's a big office,
secretary.
Right? Perspective, right?
Secretary.
Indeed.
I answered the door for 2 years, and we got nothing.
Imagine that. Anyway, It's funny that you and I were commenting on 3,000 square feet is a pretty good office.
Perspective is everything.
Yeah, because I had maybe a 200 square office cubicle at best. It's funny because the Forbes we're talking this. He's got a self-made score. He's considered one of the richest men. He's at the top 50 richest men in the world. Has $1 trillion of assets
under management.
In terms of private equity. And we're talking about self-made. You don't agree with self-made, but for the purpose of this graph, we'll talk about self-made in a second.
Sure.
He's a score of 8. So if we can take a look at my screen again, Jordan. So his self-made score in the Forbes 400 list of 2020, he ranks at a number 8. And a lot of people are ranked number 8, which means that he didn't have rich parents, but he had the opportunity to go to college still.
Yeah.
He didn't start with much, right? But it wasn't completely in poverty like Oprah. Oprah's completely in poverty.
Yeah.
So she's a 10. He's an 8. Okay?
Yeah.
So let's talk about why you don't believe in self-made.
Because no one is self-made. I think when it comes to, there are 3 levels of learning, I would say. There's formal education, which most people have. You go to university, you go to school, you learn. Now, I want to try and debunk a lot of things so people have a lot
Give us like the 60-second version of it, because I know you can get like a deep in topic.
Absolutely. Yeah. So formal education, which is academics, is what you're taught.
Right.
So at best, the goal of academics is regulation. So you have 2 people that can argue. One can save your life in court, and one can just argue till the cow comes home. What would allow you to distinguish who to go to when you're in trouble is a lawyer.
Yep.
So
You
law,
want a good one.
medicine, science, you need academics for that. The most important one is education. Now, I've coined the definition for education, and it's a bit of a mouthful, so I'll repeat it twice. Education is the ability for the human being or human spirit or human mind to first do 4 things. Experience his environment, to question it deep enough to understand the options that exist, and to know which options to choose that would add value to society. I'll take it again. So education is the ability for the human spirit to observe his environment, to search and find the options that exist within the environment, and know which options you choose.
Yep.
Now, based on that definition, most people with academics and degrees and PhDs are not educated.
Correct.
Simply because they can't observe the environment.
Yep.
They don't know how to make choices between good and bad or better and best.
Yep.
It takes, good and bad is simply something that's enabled by conscience. But in order to make a decision between good and better or better and best, it requires you to be able to understand a little bit deeper and have the agency to be able to distinguish which options works best.
Yep.
So the likes of Steve's, Schwartzman and Oprah's and these quote unquote self-made people, they fit into that category of educated.
Yeah.
Now there's a higher level, superiority education. This is what I call revelation, which is something that I had, where this is bestowed upon you from above. There's an example in the Bible where Jesus asks his disciples, "Who do you say I am?" And do you remember who responded?
You're
Peter.
You're exactly.
Peter responded. Peter responded to Jesus.
Yeah.
And said,
the entrepreneur.
Precisely. Peter responded to Jesus and said, "You are the Son of Man."
Yeah.
And Jesus responded to him saying, "The only way you could have known that is because my Father in heaven has basically downloaded that information to you." So that's revelation. So the concept of self-made, I believe it's nice to say. It's merely for ego boosts to say you created anything yourself. Your business, are you 100% the one who's built everything you have around you?
No, that's why I call myself faith-made.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you do have the support of people. You do what I call...
Which is great.
100%. So you need people to assist you. I know we didn't go into too much of Steve's story, but after he sent those 500 letters, he got introduced to a couple of investors that first backed them. So not just in terms of backing and from a financial standpoint, but people that will be able to give you moral support. Yes, they may not be able to financially, give you anything to get your business going, but just someone that believes in you, not to mention the team that you build together to build whatever enterprise that you have. So the concept of self-made, people need to disabuse their mind from that and realize you need people to make anything come together.
Right.
Period.
And the best one, you need that enlightenment,
100%.
revelation, you need that faith, that God moment to get you there. It's funny that you mentioned that because it's the toughness that gets us. You went through a tough period.
Yeah.
Anybody that's went through toughness in their early lives, they don't realize it, but it's a benefit to them. So the reason why I say I've never met a winning quitter.
Yeah.
Because I recruit people and people quit. You see my office.
Sure.
Right? Milton, you've seen, there's a lot of people that you've seen, right? In what the 5 years we've worked, you've been my trainer.
Come and go.
How many, you've seen a lot of people come and go, right?
Yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah.
Good people too.
Yeah.
And I hope that they're successful in their next endeavor, but they never become ultra successful. They kind of maintain where they're at, but they never really take it to the next
next level.
Which I would hope they would have done. Because if you're going to quit me, at least get better. But they kind of like stay.
You expect too much. Your expectation is too high.
Okay, and here's why. By the way, can we play that clip of why my expectation is too high? Because I like to see the best in people. Right?
Understandable.
Let's take a look at this clip. Why I've never met a winning quitter. 700 interviews. No, the one I emailed you. Yeah.
Okay, but the reason I say the expectation is too high is because
we're burning radio time. So I sent you an email. It's about the guy with 700 interviews. Appreciate you checking it out, Jordan. Yeah, but continue.
Everyone can't be a winner. As Christ again says, the poor will always be with you. So we can't expect everyone to have that winning mindset and have the resolve and tenacity to go and build something and be the CEO, the founder. If everyone was a founder, who the hell will be the workers? So I've come to learn that what's easy for me isn't necessarily easy at all to do.
Yeah. Right.
Let alone easy for someone else, because they don't have my history, they don't have my DNA, they don't have my experiences that I've gone through, or yourself. I mean, you're a bloody Marine, for heaven's sake.
Right.
Do you understand the mentality that it requires to become that.
Yes, right, exactly.
99% of people
and stick with it.
don't have such a mindset or such a mentality. So we all perform to installed capacity.
Gotcha.
You know,
So here we go. Let's take a look at this clip. What I'm talking about here.
I've interviewed 700 people, neuroscientists, psychologists, Olympians, billionaires, you name it. And I've learned a lot in those interviews. And one of the things I learned was this idea of future memory. The brain, the neuroscientists can see it, the surgeons, when they look at the brain leaves marks, tracks, when we take on hard things and we complete hard things. It leaves gaps in the brain, physical gaps, when we take on hard things and we don't complete them. So people that don't complete hard things are more likely to quit in the future. People that finish hard things are more likely to finish in the future, and it's especially prevalent for young people, young kids. So the more hard things young kids can take on, the more tracks they lay in the brain that the neuroscientists see, the more likely they are to be successful in life.
So there it is. Winning and quitting is a habit.
indeed.
If you've faced tough times and when push comes to shove, and sometimes you need that shove, you quit. Or when push comes to shove and you shove back and you embrace the shove and you get better, that's a habit too.
Yeah. It's a decision that we all have to make.
Yeah.
You know, ultimately, are you going to be subdued by whatever incidents or events happen to you? Or are you going to use that as a stepping stone? I had the opportunity to remain a criminal.
Yeah.
You know, however, going to prison was my stepping stone to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to actually take these skills that I've acquired in my illegal vices and utilize those skills for positive.
Right.
And actually build my business.
You still have those skills. You just redirect into something
I
that's
even have
legal.
more of those skills now. It's
'Cause
more
now
required.
Because now you don't got to take energy to go like this.
Absolutely.
Check, watch it.
100%.
Yeah, what's your opinion on these track marks in your brain?
A lot that he's speaking on, I completely agree with, especially with the whole self-made aspect of things. A lot of who I am today and what I am today wouldn't have happened if I wouldn't have been introduced to the people that I met through Matt. Even though it was Matt, it wasn't Matt at the same time.
Sure.
I do believe it was more of a divine, all right, this is where your path is going. This is the people that you're meant to impact. It has to happen through this specific avenue that you're walking through. And it happened. One of them happened to be Matt amongst other people.
Yeah.
And a lot of people tend to take out the God factor of your success.
Indeed.
A lot of people tend to take that aspect out, and then they claim, oh, it's me, it's me, it's me, it's me, it's me. And then once it's completely taken away from you and you're left completely naked, now you're forced to go back to your source. A lot of people take the source out and I think they're the source when reality comes from something bigger than themselves.
It's a problem with fame, fortune. Tom Brady said this week at the Ricky Symposium, you got away from winning championships and you went to being branded. It's about my self-image, how much I can be on social media and how I can get profiled. You forgot about winning the ultimate thing about being in a team sport, which is winning a damn championship, you know?
Yeah.
So speaking of football, Harrison Butker, Kansas City Chiefs kicker, sparks backlash for commencement speech. What did he say at this graduation speech? Let's take a look at this clip.
He pissed people off.
Yeah.
Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world.
In a controversial commencement speech at Benedictine College over the weekend, three-time Super Bowl champion Harrison Butker railing against everything from President Biden to Pride Month to IVF and speaking directly to the women in the audience.
I can tell you that my beautiful wife, Isabel, would be the first to say that her life truly started when she began living her vocation as a wife.
Butker also criticizing gay rights when telling the students to take pride in their school.
Not the deadly sin sort of pride that has an entire month dedicated to it.
And had a message for the men.
Be unapologetic in your masculinity, fighting against the cultural emasculation of men.
The NFL responding, saying Butker gave a speech in his personal capacity, and his views are not those of the league. Some pointing out the Georgia native's own mother is a physicist in the Department of Oncology at Emory.
So he talked about values and principles of the roles of men and women.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we do what we do because we need to protect and provide.
Sure.
That's our role. So our role is protect and provide.
Yeah.
So, Carl, I'd love to know what's your definition of a woman, even though she may have a career, even though she may have, I've met, the person you're in a relationship with right now.
Yeah.
She's aspiring to have a career too as well. But is it only meant for a woman just to say, I'm a career woman? Or are we really kicking up a lot of fires because he says the number one vocation for a woman is to be a mother?
He's not wrong at all. And it really goes to show you the backlash that's come out of this, where we are in society,
Absolutely.
and how
Horrible.
skewed
Yeah.
the view of what the roles that men and women play are. As he said, no woman in that crowd was thinking about when I become the CEO of. There's a reason why Barbie is always in a wedding dress.
Yeah.
You know, from a very young age, women are groomed and primed to become homemakers and wives and mothers.
By the way, let's cut to the clip because I saw the full commencement speech. I watched all of it.
Yeah, I
This is
watched
just
the
a
whole
clip.
thing
Okay, so can we cut to 12:42 of the full commencement speech, Jordan? 12 minutes, 42 seconds of the full commencement speech. Can we cue that up? And what the actual reaction was from the audience of graduates, of mothers, of women that graduated
They
college,
cheered.
and aunties and grandmas.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's take a look.
I'm beyond blessed with the many talents God has given me, but it cannot be overstated that all of my success is made possible because a girl I met in band class back in middle school
Let's get emotional.
would convert to the faith, become my wife, and embrace one of the most important titles of all, homemaker.
Listen. The audience is cheering. And the audience is cheering. Okay, we can stop there. The audience is cheering. Meanwhile, if you cut to my screen, to Jordan, over 200,000 people have voted to dismiss Harrison. See that 200,000 right there in the middle? 222 signed this petition to dismiss him as a kicker. Get your job, get you fired from your job. And then there's another petition to keep his job, support him. So what's your reaction to people cheering in the audience? It's filled with women. It's filled with these grandmas. It's filled with these mothers. They're cheering him on.
We got to understand that these extreme left liberal views are the views of the few, but unfortunately, that few are the majority, control the majority of enterprises.
Yeah.
And again, for me, this more necessitates the need because the NFL has come out saying, you know, we don't share his views. He spoke in his own capacity.
Right.
The Kansas City Chiefs said the same thing.
Yep.
And the city of Kansas City said the same thing.
Yep.
Now, what does that say for me? My view is this now necessitates the need for the likes of us to use enterprise to promulgate the kingdom. Because nothing he said there was wrong.
Yep.
Everything was faith-based.
Yeah, he's been at Catholic school, Catholic
Precisely.
university.
You know, so what do you expect him to say? You know, but what's making me angry with situations like this we've seen oftentimes is people render their personal views faith-based typically, and they get counseled, they lose their jobs. But I'm more looking at who is in the capacity to actually counsel you. It's someone who runs an enterprise.
Yeah.
You know, it's someone who runs a business.
Right.
That necessitates us believers, us Christians, to be in positions of influence and power to make sure that we're safeguarding individuals like this. You know, we're using our platform, our enterprise, to promulgate the kingdom and these kind of views. But unfortunately, we see in the world that we live today that those people in such capacities, which represent the few essentially, are the ones who have opposing views. And when stuff like this come out, it's very easy for them to say, counsel, you lose your job, out.
And here's what gets celebrated. Jordan, can you show my screen real quick? Here's the tale of two Kansas City Chiefs. Travis Kelce gets invited to speak at a commencement speech. Guess what he does at the commencement speech? Chugs a damn beer. This guy
It's ridiculous.
talks about faith-based values and principles, role of a man and a woman.
Yeah, you can see the contrast.
And then he gets, everyone wants him fired.
Yeah.
What's your relationship with your mother?
Very good.
Very good. What's your relationship with your mother? I know, very good.
Amazing.
My relationship with my mother. And guess what? My mother was a nurse, right? And she did a great job being a mom, but she was also a nurse. My wife is a great entrepreneur, my partner.
Yeah.
And guess what she is? She's a great mom.
Yeah.
So why are we ridiculing the position of women to continue humanity? The God entrusted not men, but the womb of a woman.
Yeah.
To continue. And through a woman's womb, we have likes like you.
Absolutely.
We have likes like you. We have likes like you. Who have dreams, have goals, who's gonna make changes in our country and our community because we're mothered.
Yeah.
We're raised by a mother. So, man. So listen, here's the crazy part. And guess who also responded? Let our money dictate what people are thinking. If you look at my screen again, here's one of the most popular jerseys sold so far this week. His jersey.
There's nothing like bad publicity.
By the way, who buys a Kicker's jersey?
Exactly. Exactly.
Right? And guess which jersey is sold out?
His.
Women's.
Oh, the women's jerseys.
Women's jerseys are sold out.
Way to support.
Women's jerseys are sold out on this. And yet, I don't have too much time to get into it, but where was the stink when all this happened to other NFL athletes? Arrest for DOI, right? Reckless driving, drug possession, arrest. Where are the petitions? There are no petitions. Oh, it's just another player doing this thing. But the moment this guy talks about being a good man, being a woman, father, mother, he gets these things should get booted off.
Listen, I'm not surprised with all these things happening because, again, everything I do, my entire outlook on life is rooted in the gospel. And Christ says this, in the latter days, men would be haters of good and love evil.
Yes.
And this is exactly what we're seeing playing out.
And the rights are wrong and the wrongs are right.
100%.
That's right.
So we got the memo first and foremost.
That's right, we got it.
But we have a duty to be in positions of power and influence to safeguard those who choose Christ, and choose truth, essentially. We have a duty. We're duty bound by that.
So my prayer, my hope, is that more women don't feel ashamed about taking the traditional role.
Absolutely.
Right? That more women aren't ashamed about taking the traditional role.
Yeah.
You all don't have to be career women. And if you don't want to be a mom, that's fine too. But the moment somebody has an opposing view than you, when it became bad, when do we have to start canceling people because they have an opposing view? There should be a conversation to be had. We start to take you from education to enlightenment.
Revelation, absolutely.
What would you
from academics to education.
Yep.
And revelation.
And revelation.
Yeah.
Amen. We need more revelation.
Absolutely.
In people's lives. Next topic. 1 in 3 Americans between 18 and 24, we'll finish off in this topic. 1 out of 3 Americans between 18 and 24 years old have no income.
There's a video for that too.
Okay. Would you like to cue that?
Pull
video?
it up.
Gen Z is now leading the disconnected youth movement, and it's not a good thing because Gen Z is stressed and frustrated about their career choices and education, because the cost of education, especially college, is extremely expensive, and it's hard to know what career to choose and what jobs are going to be available when you graduate because of AI automation. A lot of these entry-level jobs are going to be automated, not exist. A lot of jobs are going to change. New skills will become more important. Other old skills become less important. So it's going to be extremely not only competitive, but confusing about what to do, because you're going to, no matter where you start, you're going to end up completely different.
So it's 1 in 3 now during these times, and they're saying back in the 90s it was 1 in 5, and it's increasing. And they're saying because exactly what we're talking about the restaurant today, AI is starting to come in, and a lot of people aren't qualified for it, or they just their schooling that they have offered now isn't aligned to the amount of technological advancements that we're having in our society nowadays. And now also one of the studies to show, I think it's Harvard, if I'm not mistaken, they speak about this generation's mental health.
Yeah.
A lot of the mental health crises that are happening is due to social media, is due to economic uncertainty and, again, global issues. So if you look at a Gen Z versus a millennial or someone what's next after a millennial? It's a Gen X?
The sexiest generation
Gen
ever
X.
created in the history of humankind, created by God.
Yeah. So if you look at the
90s R&B,
yeah,
that's all I gotta say.
Yeah,
90s
absolutely.
R&B, 90s hip hop. That's all I gotta say.
if you look at a mindset of an older millennial,
How old are you, Carl?
38.
Yeah.
38.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you're the
Older millennial.
Older millennial.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you look at the mindset and psychology of an older millennial and the younger Gen X's, you guys, they didn't have Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat back
No.
on Twitter. They had maybe like the older version of the MySpace.
Yeah.
But that was like the beginning aspects of all things.
Yes.
Social media wasn't a thing, so comparison wasn't a huge thing. I think a lot of people, a lot of these Gen Zers are in the headspace of consistently trying to. They're not doing it intentionally, but they're consistently exposed to other people living their best lives on social media.
Yeah.
So automatically, your headspace is going to go into a realm of I'm not doing the best that I possibly can. I don't have this person's life. I'm not making it because I'm like making X amount of money by this age, not knowing that people who are in their, late millennials, early Gen Zers, and even people beyond that, there was a system they had to follow, a hard road they had to attain. Now social media offers you instant gratification, making you assume that you can become a millionaire overnight.
That's crazy because people want it in a 60-second clip.
Yes.
They want it in a 30-second reel.
Say highlights and think that's reality. Something you mentioned, Matt, I think when it comes to the word mental health, that's very much in vogue at the moment, and it's a buzzword. And I really get a little peed off when people misuse that term, mental health.
Because it sometimes sounds like an excuse.
Absolutely, because my brother had mental health. For real, and he actually ended up committing suicide.
Diagnosed.
He actually struggled with mental health. There's a distinction between mental health and just being lazy.
That's right.
Which a lot of this new generation is.
Or not learning how to handle stress.
Absolutely.
Everybody goes through stress.
100%. And they just don't have any agency. And we're going to see that more with the rise of AI, where you don't have to think much anymore. The average 25-year-old today, their mindset and their capabilities is what the average 15-year-old was capable of 20 years ago.
Sure.
That's crazy. What the average 15-year-old can do 20, 30 years ago, the average 25, even 30-year-old today can't do. Incapable of just taking care of yourself, having the agency, thinking and solving problems. So of course,
or learning new technology.
Or just learning new things, simply because
somebody doesn't have an Instagram account.
I don't want the distractions, and that's the very reason why I'm staying off. It is the Antichrist.
So Carl, what do you think about when people think that I got to be rich in my 20s, I got to be rich in my 20s, but you're in finance, you're in private equity, you're around rich guys all the time.
Oh yeah.
When do actually men start really making their money?
There's a reason why you often do not see. When you see a Ferrari drive by, Lambo, Bentley, Rolls Royce, look at who's driving those cars. 9 times out of 10 is someone who's 50 plus. Why? It takes a long time to make money.
Hello. Amen.
It takes a long time to build anything of, real value.
And by the way, we're talking like real money. Not making just 100,000 a year.
Absolutely.
You should be making
takes time to do that. So people need to disabuse this idea of instant gratification. Yes, there are new occupations these days that you can go to and make a lot of money. But at the same time, you lose it quicker than you actually acquire it. Hence why athletes, Instagram people, influencers, they call themselves these days, OnlyFans people. Yes, they can amass a lot of money in a very short space of time, but they don't have the mindset. Being a billionaire or millionaire isn't how much is in your bank account. It's your thinking framework. It's your skills. It's the mental posture that you have that puts you in that realm.
But speaking of athletes, let's take a look at my screen one more time, Jordan, please. Antonio Brown, AB, the stud wide receiver, files bankruptcy yesterday. That's claims $50,000 in assets. That's it, and he signed millions of dollars in contracts. I'm looking into it now, but he filed Chapter 11, so it's not a personal. I think it's Chapter 11 is a business.
Chapter 11 bankruptcy.
Right, but anyway, make a long story short, it's not surprising anymore to see athletes make all this money and sadly go bankrupt.
No, because they're not finance people; they're athletes.
That's right.
They play. They don't know how to grow money, and they don't know how to. Again, another word: generational wealth. Everyone's throwing that around these days, and people again misunderstand what that is. Buying a house or buying assets doesn't connote or constitute generational wealth.
So they forget the AL part, the no part, the generation. It might be generation.
Absolutely.
Wealth, but generational to me is, according to scripture, is your children and your children's children. It's 3.
Absolutely. So again, in Proverbs, King Solomon says, "A good man creates work for his children's children."
Right.
Let me quickly, very succinctly, give people what generational wealth actually is.
Do it.
Generational wealth is not an asset. It's not a building. It's not a bunch of buildings. Yes,
it's a component of it.
It's a component of it. But ultimately, intrinsically, generational wealth is structure.
Come on, baby.
It's structure in the form of a trust or covenants.
Yeah.
There are various ways that you can have structure
Yeah.
in generational wealth. Yes,
Yeah.
the assets go into that structure,
Yeah.
which ultimately allows for the generations
Correct.
to be able to reap the benefits of
Yeah.
those assets.
Yeah.
But just buying an asset in an LLC or whatever the case might be, it isn't generational wealth.
Yeah.
So people really need to educate themselves on what that actually looks like, accustom themselves to what those structures are,
Yeah.
and actually go ahead and start erecting those structures now.
And I would add to that too. So awesome. I would add to that too as well the wisdom of how those structures and those assets were acquired and created.
Absolutely.
Because I'd love to hand. That's why I'm writing books.
Yeah.
What was that Jewish proverb? Every man needs to have a son.
Yes.
In the Jewish faith, every man needs to have a son. Every man needs to plant a tree.
Yeah.
And every man needs to write a book. All those things have to deal with
Structure, absolutely, and generational wealth,
And generational wealth.
100%. So it's less about the assets, but even more is the mindsets and the disciplines that you instill in your generations to come.
Yeah.
You know, there's a reason why back in the days the kings always were very, very particular with who they allowed their sons and their daughters to marry.
Sure.
Simply because you have to have a particular set of mindsets,
Yeah.
a particular approach, a particular way of thinking and doing things for you to be able to be part of the family, because we're not just going to build all of this and you're just going to come in and squander it.
Yeah.
You know,
Get divorced and then take it off.
absolutely,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then it goes. You know, so people really need to understand what generational wealth is and not just think I bought a single house family and then I got generational wealth. That's BS.
You know, as I wrap up, just a thought here before I was processing it. You're talking about academic.
Academics,
Yeah.
education, and revelation.
And we're reading a book this month, company-wide, called Emotional Intelligence.
Yeah.
And that, what you just talked about really encompasses
100%.
Emotional intelligence, because you can be
Absolutely.
educated,
Yeah.
but you may not be aware
Absolutely.
about how
Completely
to apply
oblivious.
that education.
100%.
And that's the skills.
It's those soft skills that ultimately contributes to, again, we were talking earlier on about self-made.
Yeah.
Oprah doesn't have formal education.
Yeah.
You know, and a whole bunch of billionaires that
Three
we know
guys
today.
here to make money, not a college degree amongst the three of us.
Zero. But it's those soft skills, the ability to persuade people,
Yeah.
the public speaking,
Yep.
Understanding your clients, and just relationship building.
Yep.
It's all predicated on that. They don't teach that in Harvard and Yale and Oxford and Cambridge, unfortunately.
That being said, guys, what a show we had today, man. That's why you tune into the Seven Figure Squad podcast, to join dialogue like this, to help you think like a millionaire, to help you strategize to become a millionaire, and Lord willing, to become a first generation cash flow, not a paper, cash flow millionaire. That being said, love to know your thoughts. You agree with us? You don't agree with us? And by the way, do we have that lower third for the Seven Figure Squad merch site? We've been wearing these shirts, Just Earn It. Sadly, today, people are thinking about who's got what I want and how do I get it from them. We just say, who has what I want and how do I start earning a life like them? That's our thought process. So people today feel like somebody owes them something. Well, here right now, you have three multicultural brothers here who believe in God, who love their families, they want to create generational wealth. Well, just earn it, baby. So please go visit our site, shop.sevenfiguresquad.com, if you'd like to pick up some merch here of the Seven Figure Squad podcast. That being said, guys, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe, hit like, drop your thoughts. And if you have been watching this show, and maybe I'll do this, if you watch this show all the way to the end and you put earn it in the comments below, I'm going to send the first 5 people to put earn it in the comment section. First 5 people, if you watch it to the end, earn it in the comment section, and I'll send you a shirt from my studio, our studio, to your address. Earn it in the comment section below. That being said, Carl, you got to come back again, brother. Appreciate it. Maybe we have a 2-hour podcast next time around. But Milton, appreciate you. That being said, it looks like a tornado's about to go.
You just went dark out
we got a severe thunderstorm warning here in Texas, and obviously Dallas is right in the middle of it. So that being said, tune in again. Continue to live smart. Continue to love smart. And be mighty smart today. God bless you guys. Bye-bye. See you next week.